This is Mark Rabin. Welcome to episode 308 of Lean Blog Audio. This is a post that was published on August 7th, 2020, and it's titled, Why I'm Handing Over My Blog for the Week to hashtag Root Cause Racism. You might have heard of what's called a social media takeover, where a brand with a large following gives control of their social media feed to somebody who's promoting a cause or a social message. So as many Americans are doing, I've been thinking about and reflecting and trying to learn about racism and the effects on people of color. For what it's worth, I've read the book White Fragility, and I've participated in discussions about it with colleagues at both Value Capture and KaiNexus as we figure out how to improve our organizations. My wife and I have watched and talked about films, including 13th and Let It Fall, about that last film being about some of the history in Los Angeles. They're both available on Netflix, and the film 13th is available for free viewing on YouTube. And you can find a link to that and everything I mentioned here at leanblog.org/audio308. So on the subject of history and my own curiosity about, how did things get to be this way? I've been reading the book Stamped from the Beginning, The Definitive History of Racist Ideas in America. That's the book that Ibram X. Kendi wrote before the widely popular book How to Be an Anti-Racist, which I started reading, but I put on hold to read Stamped from the Beginning first. In recent months, I saw a video that was published by General Charles Q. Brown Jr. He's now the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, and that video was particularly powerful when I watched it back in June, and that video is embedded in the blog post. So, watching that video, I was thinking about how, unlike General Brown, nobody looks at me and asks, does he belong? Do I belong? Because of the color of my skin. It saddens me that somebody like General Brown has faced such discrimination. So I've shared some of my other reflections in a blog post, and I've hosted a conversation on the subject of lean and diversity, equity, and inclusion in my Lean Blog Interviews podcast series. It's episode 378 if you want to go listen to that. Now, look, I'm not an expert on any of this. I'm just as flawed as anybody else, but I'm trying to learn and grow. The one person I've followed on LinkedIn is Deandra Wardell. She is a lean practitioner like me. She's a Black woman, unlike me. Deandra was brave enough to post some thoughts and personal reflections on her feelings and experiences in the aftermath of the killings of the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, among others. I was disappointed and embarrassed, really, by some of the utterly dismissive comments that were made by white men in reply there on LinkedIn. I mean, that didn't seem right. It's one thing to have a different point of view. It's another, it's bad, to try to invalidate the experiences and feelings of others. I think as lean practitioners, we should humbly aim to respect all people. This means listening and understanding their perspectives and realities. The idea of go and see doesn't mean going and imposing our views. It means going and listening. As Toyota's Fujio Cho and probably others there say, go and see, ask why, and show respect. When people are hurting, I think we should go see, ask why, and show respect. I don't know what the answers are, and that's okay for now. I'm trying to understand the problem, the current state, and causes, if not root causes. And, I made an edit to the blog post, not taking anything out, but, I added this thought that I've been reflecting on, saying, that's okay for now. That I don't know what the answers are, and that's okay for now. Well, maybe the lack of answers is okay for me as a white person, but I can understand the sense of urgency that people of color would have to find solutions, yesterday. So if an employee says that something is unsafe in a workplace, an executive shouldn't reply by saying, well, no, it isn't. And when somebody says they're being treated differently or being discriminated against, we shouldn't say, no, you aren't. So thinking back to the idea of a quote unquote social media takeover. I was inspired by Deandra, so I asked her to accept a blog handover, as I'm calling it. She's not taking anything, I'm offering it. My initial thought was to give a platform for her to write and talk about anything she wanted. That's what happens in a takeover / handover. I wanted to give more exposure to her voice. So we had some email exchanges and a wonderful Zoom conversation to get acquainted and to brainstorm. And Deandra really ran with this idea. She recruited a number of Black women and white women to write blog posts on themes of lean, diversity, equity, and inclusion. She's calling it #RootCauseRacism. And some of the blog posts don't come from a lean or continuous improvement perspective, and I think that's fine. I think that's refreshing. But if you go to the blog post, leanblog.org/audio308, you'll see the participants in the plan for the series that's going to run through Friday, August 14th. We'll sometimes have 2 or 3 posts a day. So I invite you to go to the blog, now here on Saturday the 8th, when Deandra wrote a post that gives her introduction to the series from her perspective and laying out the plan and the vision for the week and beyond. So we're going to have blog posts coming from people from professional perspectives and thinking about community involvement, business and corporate responsibility, education, healthcare, government, and the arts. And so on that last day, Friday the 14th, I'm going to be moderating a panel discussion with Deandra and 8 other women. KaiNexus has been kind enough to allow us to use their Zoom webinar account for this. So there's a registration link in the blog post, or you can go to kainexus.com/webinars. We're calling this webinar Sharing Our Visions and Voices to #RootCauseRacism. And again, that's being held August 14th, 1 o'clock Eastern. So again, I'm going to be doing my best to stay out of the way on the blog this week. This is really about letting other voices have their say and let them shine. I am going to be publishing one podcast on the Lean Blog interviews series during the week. I'm going to publish this on Tuesday that touches on these themes with 2 very special guests. I'm going to be joined by Dr. Randall Pinkett. Among other things, he was the first and only Black winner of The Apprentice. And Dr. Jeffrey Robinson, a professor at Rutgers Business School. We'll be talking about the book they co-authored called Black Faces in White Places, and their upcoming book, Black Faces in High Places. We're going to talk about what's going on in society and some things that organizations can do. So I hope you'll accept the invitation to read and listen to these perspectives over the coming week. You can find all of these blog posts, again, through August 14th at leanblog.org, or you can go specifically to leanblog.org/RootCauseRacism. Or if you want to type less, you can go to leanblog.org/RCR. And again, I invite you to go to leanblog.org/audio308 for links and more. Thank you.